Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of Story Talkies with We-Storytellers. Today, as our guest, we have Mr. Murali Bukkapatnam. Murali is the chairman and CEO of Voxy Technologies, which serves as an incubator for promising ideas. Murali has been converting innovative ideas into successful ventures in different sectors. His latest venture, Ahem, aims to bridge the talent gap in the tech industry. The focus has been training and retraining ambitious individuals in the IT domain. Ahem aspires to become a premier software engineering firm in the coming years, and we wish them all the best. Murali is also significantly involved with TIE, a prestigious organization founded in Silicon Valley. He has served as the president of the Hyderabad chapter, vice chairman of TIE Global, and is now the chairman of Chapter Development Committee. Today, we will be discussing with him a lot about EdTech, artificial intelligence, startups, and more. So welcome to the conversation, Murali. Happy to be hosting you.
Thank you, Swati. It's my pleasure to be here. It's always good to talk to fellow entrepreneurs and just share what we as entrepreneurs go through as part of this journey of building our own little small enterprises in whatever shape or form we give it, right? So in that way, I've been fortunate to have interacted with multiple entrepreneurs over a decade. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's a very interesting thing. In fact, your profile is full of entrepreneurship stories. And I see that you have invested in a lot of startups. 13 to be precise is what I read here. And you have invested a lot of hours in mentoring young entrepreneurs, which is great. So over the years, and I think your entrepreneurship journey dates back over a decade or more. And over this decade, what is the changes in the entrepreneurship landscape that you have observed, and what challenges and opportunities have presented themselves during that journey? How do you see that the landscape has changed, and what were the good things, great things, or some of the challenges?
I think Swati, that's a great question, right? So I became an angel in around 2005, 2006 time frame, probably about 2005, right? To be precise, and that's when I was in US. Then about 2007 is when I did a serious bout into angel investment, and as a personal investment vehicle, started investing, looking towards India as a destination, right? And in fact, one of that investments is what brought me back to India after being in US for 17 years, right? So from 2002 is when I started my entrepreneurial journey, right? I used to run a services company in US. Then in 2008, I became a full-time in the hospitality sector. Then in about 2013, I ventured into real estate. And 2014 is when I ventured into skill development, training, and that part of the journey, right? Now I'm, as a full life cycle, I'm back to software services. So to be very precise, software engineering services. In this span of my entrepreneurial journey and me coming back to India, I see a huge shift towards or within the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India, right? Earlier, when I used to meet entrepreneurs, there were problems which they would have observed in the US markets or the European markets, and they were trying to replicate it or mimic within India. But as late, I mean, last couple of years, I see a big difference where Indian entrepreneurs are trying to find solutions for the Indian markets, Indian ecosystem, Indian locale, either from the urban population versus the rural population, right? A lot of maturity has come in the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem in last 5-6 years, what I observe, right? Just to give you a small anecdote, right? About a week ago, I was in Coimbatore. Thai Coimbatore had organized their Thai Women finals, and I was there as a chief guest to just witness that finals. There were about 6 startups led by women entrepreneurs, right, presented. I would say about 5 out of 6, right, were investable, right? They had the opportunity to go to the next level, irrespective of whether, who won the finals or as a competition point of view, but whether they're investable, whether they are finding solutions for the problems which are India-centric was very, very high, right? With respect to, again, 2 days later, I witnessed this similar spectacle from the Thai Hyderabad chapter. And it was, 10 were presented. Out of 10, I would say 7 of them were investable, right? So as a fellow entrepreneur and probably an angel investor, it is a great maturity from the ecosystem point of view. So superb. So this is the change which I see from the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the last few years from the Indian context point of view.
That's great, because that's a very new perspective that I've heard, and that the Indian entrepreneur has developed a personality of its own. And I agree that most of us were mimicking what was being done in the US or Europe, but now looking at the particular market, the Indian market, and the Indian market has also evolved. The Indian consumer has evolved. Everything is growing and evolving. So that's great to know.
Absolutely, you're right, Swati. I think there is a tremendous change from the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And what the matter, a pride factor for me was so many investable startups that are started by women, right? I think there is a diversity factor also you see lately coming into the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? And I think you see a similar change in the US and the European markets as well. You see a lot of women entrepreneurs out there who are coming into this thing. And in the month of July, I was in Rio. Mm-hmm. And I saw even the Brazilian entrepreneurial ecosystem so vibrant. So, I'm just giving you a global context as well. So the startups are not now just limited to Silicon Valley or Boston or some parts and pockets of US or some pockets of Europe. Now it has become a global movement, right? So it's a very, very, very welcome change which I'm seeing.
Good times to be in. Looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Circling back a little, going back to what you were discussing about the different kind of sectors that you have worked in or invested in, and have had experience as an entrepreneur, and you have come a full circle and into the skilling and technology-based education and everything. So my question to you was that what do you think is the future of education look like now? Education is also evolving like everything else that is evolving. But what does the future look like? What is the role of, say, AI, virtual reality, blockchain, etc., all these new emerging technologies in the future of education?
Again, another great question, Swati. So I'm a father of a 15-year-old boy, right? So I keep telling him that how I wish I was a student at this particular age, right? At this particular generation, right? They're exposed to so many faculties of education, right? Be it liberal arts, right? Which encompasses your political science, social science, geography, right, civics, right. See, as a student, you would have to choose whether you want to be a doctor or an engineer, right? And then you tread that path, right? But now, given the number of different institutions which are coming up, and the concept of practicing professors coming along, right? Even the institutions are not very particular that only a particular person with a PhD or a person with a B.Ed, such degrees can teach, right? But anyone who has a practicing knowledge can impart that education to the future students, right? So from a learning point of view, from an institutional point of view, that's a great what do you call change, which you welcome change, I say. Now, with respect to the technologies which are impacting the education sector, again, huge change, right? I mean, as you would notice, the generative AI is going to play an extremely important role, either to help students research the material, or professors to check on the plagiarism or any such activities which are happening, right? And yeah, your AI is also going to help from the skill-based education system, right? Whether if I want to just learn a new skill, whether it be a carpentry, whether it could be art, right? Whether I want to draw, or whether I want to learn a new language, right? These tools from the artificial intelligence, background can help in a person in that keen interest, help them impart that knowledge or seek that knowledge. Whether I'm a person who is providing that or a seeker who is seeking that knowledge, it becomes a extremely easy two-way communication kind of a thing between these two entities, right? Whereas from the blockchain point of view, when you look at credentializing the skills which I learned, you have multiple parties in that value chain, and you want to make sure that authentication of that credentials works very, very seamlessly, right? For your certification process or your learning process or a proctoring of that particular learning, or whatever you may want to call it, right? That blockchain helps quite well from that aspect of the technology points of view, right? So institutions are embracing these technologies quite well, right? There's a long way for the institutions also to learn, right? And implement it. So maybe about a decade ago, it was the SAP and the ERP, and to enhance the value chain, the student record management or the certificate management. From that point of view, the technology was involved, right? Later on, you had the tools which would teach people how to write better English, or teach them how to be a better programmer, right? Then you saw an era where hands-on project working, right? Be it small computers which I could fix, IoT devices which I could fix, robotics programming, which was all part and parcel of feel and touch learning, right? So now with the advent of 3D printing, I could really whatever I could visualize as a young scholar or a young researcher, I can bring that knowledge, right, into a physical form. I'm sure you would have seen the news where the 3D printers are printing the houses, right? So a civil engineer can experiment and do it. A mechanical engineer can experiment and bring out the knowledge which he has learned in the classrooms to the experimental arena on what his mind is capable of unfolding it. So there's a lot of these applications which are bringing out the the best of the best in the education sector. So, it's quite exciting times, either to be an educator or to an educatee, right? Both from a seeker, learner point of view or an educator point of view. Very, very exciting times, Swati.
Yeah, true, very true. It is very exciting because, the options have opened up, the flexibility is there, and authenticity is also there. It's not like, you're just doing rote learning, but you are experiencing it also. So, in fact, I was watching something regarding virtual reality and how it is affecting, the learning in the classroom. And it was very interesting, that lab experiments and things like that that you can do through the virtual reality.
Yeah, augmented reality and the virtual reality is going to help enhance the entire learning experience in classrooms. So very, very valid point.
For students, definitely it's an exciting time. What do you think has been the effect on people like us on the lifelong learning journey? There was a
In
time,
fact,
an era where you finished your education, you started working, you finished your work, and then you retired, and that's, like we were in boxes. But how has all these changes in the education sector affected lifelong learning?
no, a brilliant observation, right, Swati? See, today, right? I mean, when you get up in the morning, you open your WhatsApp, right? Then you suddenly see a message from one of your friends on some a self-learning exercise or a motivational thing, right? Now, what is the process happening there, right? The process is about learning, right? You as an individual, you as a consumer is willing to read that message, right? It could be a 30-second message or a 2-minute message. Whether and you're consuming the content in a 2-minute video format or a 2-minute document format, right? Or a 30-second simple message in a poster format, right? Whichever the format might be, you're willing to learn, right? Now you extend the same analogy, right, to learning a skill set, right? So, for example, I want to learn Portuguese as a language. Your Duolingo, what it does is it sends you 3, 4, 5 exercises on a daily basis, which takes just 5 minutes, right? So as a learner who I want to learn, earlier, I would have to find a teacher, I would have to find a group, whatever. Today, that has come down to my doorsteps, right? Into my fingertips. Learning has become so easy. Now, imagine me learning that particular language for 3 months or 4 months. Then can I take a certification exam which will help me prove my proficiency in that particular language, right? And there are apps, right? There are certification mechanisms, the technology, and the revolution in which the credentialization is happening helps me get a certificate to prove my proficiency to the outer world, right? I'm just giving an example of a language. It could be as simple as digital marketing skills, right? Can I become proficient in placing AdWords and getting a certificate so that will enable me to either get myself better in the existing job, right, with the current employer, or seek a new job with a new employer using my new certificate of learning, which I just did using the technology which is available out there in the free ecosystem which is available, right? So that's how much the changes have happened. The rapid reforms in the education system, that the way we learn, right, has happened. And as an adult learner, right, what best form, right, than for me to be a continuous seeker of knowledge, right, whatever that knowledge may be, right, which will fit my interest. and the latest innovation in the educational technologies have enabled that for me.
Great. So all good things, but I'm sure there are some, challenges, some obstacles, some things that you have observed and seen and thought that I wish this was not the, impediment or the roadblock. Like when you earlier mentioned about, all the entrepreneurs at the Thai conferences, different ones, and there are, people from different sectors and different backgrounds who are, onboarding the entrepreneurial journey. But I'm sure there are things that can be improved, and when you watch these presentations you say, oh, I wish they would have done this. What is that thing?
True, right? So of course, this is a life, right? When the good is happening, bad is bound to happen, right? One of the most pertinent one is the our time to concentrate, right? We are now our ability to focus is limited to probably few minutes, right? Or few seconds in some cases. So the kids who are growing up with the technology in the fingertips, right? What has happened is that their ability to concentrate, that ability to focus has come down, right? See, when I was growing up, my teachers used to make me sit for hours together, right? Practice mathematical problems or even for that matter, grammar, right? As basic as grammar, right? But nowadays, that ability to focus for long durations have practically non-existent, right? So that is one of the biggest drawbacks, right? Now, the second drawback is the memorization of the information, right? Because the information is so readily available, the technology, the technical tools at our disposal, right, gives you a false sense of confidence or false sense of protection. You know that Google is always there. If I need something, I can always Google, right? So you ability, right, as a human being, what you used to memorize in the past, right? You're not you're not doing that, right? See your ability, and that will have a lot of psychological and health issues, right? Be it dementia or any other health problems, because you're not using your brain as much as you should, right? We used to learn mathematical formulas, right? Which you would remember, right? But these days that has changed because you have the tools at your fingertip, you have the browsers at your fingertip, you have a ways and means in which the technology will help you get a prompt of those things. So your ability to use your brain will come down. So that's the biggest side effect, right? Now you asked me about from an entrepreneurs, I wish they have done it, right? The biggest thing is that they going deep into that particular subject, right? And trying to really discover what is the core problem, right? Core constituents to whom they're addressing the problem for, right? So that's the, I mean, still the apple and the motherhood, that's the attitude in which we are going around, right? If we could change that a little bit, I think we'll be in a much, much, much better shape.
Very pertinent, because one venture becomes successful and then there are lots of people following suit and copycatting. But most often they fail to go deep into who they are providing what service for. Like, why is it that we exist? That question is often not answered. So that's great, amazing thoughts there. I had one curious observation, Murali, and on your profile, I observed that you mentioned that AHEM focuses on women folk who have taken a career break, and AHEM would definitely like to bring them back into the workforce and retrain them and utilize their skills. So which is great, amazing. But why this workforce? What was the thought behind this? What do you think is the reason that they should come back? Because obviously they have gone back from the gone away from the workforce for some stellar reasons. They have their reasons. They are educated, they have experience, but they have some priorities, and that's why they are away from the workforce. Why do you think they need to come back to the workforce?
Swati, a great question, right? Just to give you a bit of background, ahem means important or essential, right? And when it's a Urdu word, right? I am from Hyderabad. Urdu is a very dominant language. It's a Deccani, right? I'm from Deccan Plateau, so I named the company. We want to play in a very, very important, or we want to be an essential in the lives of the stakeholders who we touch, right?
Yeah.
And as India moves from trying to be an economical superpower, right? You see large constituents of this economic superpower to be women, right? There is a educated, maybe worked for a few years, but have taken a break because of mostly familial reasons, right? Either they have kids, right? Or they had ailing parents, right? They just wanted to, support husband in husband's venture, whatever the reason might be. You have a strong, constituents, as you rightly said, very educated, right? Who are there, right? Imagine the economic contribution which we are missing out, right? They not being part of the this workforce, right? And studies have found time and again, right? These are super intelligent, right? Hardworking, right? With great backgrounds, who are staying on the sidelines, right? So by bringing them back into workforce, right, you are, you're enabling the circle of wealth, right? You're enabling the great administrative, program management, project management skill set, which women naturally possess, right? At least we men have to work on our program management and project management skills. But God has endowed upon, women this natural ability to multitask, right? Manage the projects extremely well, right? You see that day in and day out of our lives, right? How they manage things, right? So you imagine you bringing that natural instinct of this, workforce into action, right? And enable that to generate economic returns. So I feel that India or any country, right, are missing out on that basic, economic returns, right, and keeping, the wheel of wealth running, right. And I'm also a big believer, right? I mean, I read this as growing up, right? You educate a man, you're only educating himself, right? If you educate a girl child, right, you're educating the entire family, right? Now imagine if you're educating a group of women, right? That means you are educating the entire village, right? So by employing or bringing this particular mindset of folks into the workforce, you're employing the entire nation, right? So that's the thought process behind this philosophy at AHEM.
Amazing, great. Yeah, and in order to meet the diversity definitely has its benefits, and there has to be enough number of people available to be to make the workplaces diverse. So that is also
For me, see, more than diversity, Swati, see, I grew up in a family where always, see, my dad started a college for women, probably about 20, exclusively for women in a tier 4 town, right? I think it was 95 or 96, right? How many ever years ago, right? So I grew up in a family where we believed in the contribution of women way before, right? Way before it was a style or a fad, right? I grew up with 3 strong women, one my mother and 2 of my sisters, right? Growing up, we were at par, right? I mean, my family made sure that anything, right? It could be as simple as a 5-star chocolate, right, which would come into the house, right? Or education, anything which you can think of, right? It was all at par, right? So that's the kind of values or belief system. I wouldn't call it value, maybe belief system in which I grew up, right? So when you grow up with that, it's not about diversity, right? But it is the automatic choice. I mean, if you see a friend and you feel that friend is not contributing, you ask that friend, hey, what's up? Is something wrong? How can I help you, right? And that's exactly how I feel, right? If I see women who are capable, and I feel personally that they are the better administrators. I've seen this time and again, right? Either in my ventures or this thing, they're a lot more focused, right? They're a lot more diligent, right? And if such quality folks are on the sidelines and they're not playing the game, I would want them to be on my team, right? I want them to play the game and make me the winner. So whoever they're not taking them on their team is their loss. But I want to make sure that I want to win the game. So that's the belief.
Our heartiest best wishes for that, and may all your ventures be very successful. And it's amazing that you are working on so many ventures and helping more and more people become successful. I think that's the key there. And it has been a pleasure hosting you, Murali, and really enjoyed the discussion. And I look forward to hosting you again after a few years, maybe, and we will talk about the AHEM story again.
Thank you, Swati. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you and the team. I wish you guys the very best. I really enjoyed talking to you guys and sharing what my thoughts are, some of my beliefs. It's been a long journey. Being an entrepreneur is never easy. Right? But what keeps any of the entrepreneur alive is a matter of fact that we are creating something on a regular basis, right? Every day is a journey. Every day is a learning for us, and just keeps us very excited, right? So thank you for the great and fantastic opportunity you and your team has provided to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.